Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the True to Life podcast. Today I'm joined by Gregory Menvielle, a former student athlete and now coaches a women's water polo team, as well as working with student athletes and young professionals, in the professional world. And we were connected on LinkedIn. I think you responded to the episode with my uncle Adam Carew, and from then we were connected, messaged back and forth on LinkedIn a little bit, and through some scheduling woos, we're finally here and we made it work. Gregory is calling in from Spain, so we had to work together on a little bit of a time aligning time schedules, but so happy he's here with us today. So just to get us started, Greg, what got you into sports? What sport did you play growing up? And just talk about a little bit about your upbringing.
Sure. So I actually grew up in France, spent all my life in France until I was 17 when I moved to the US. I was pretty much in a sports family. My mom was very much into sports. My dad was on the French national team for rugby. So I
Wow.
grew up in those environments. I quickly discovered that I didn't have what it takes to take rugby and entertain a crazy dream of playing of swimming actually. And growing up back then, the Olympics was a big thing. And same thing, the way the system worked in Europe back then is, or you made standards, or they painfully made it clear to you you were not making standards. And I was
Mm.
not making standards in swimming. Ended up playing water polo, which turned out to be a really cool discovery for me. So I finished my high school in France, and then I did my undergrad at Santa Monica College for 2 years, and then UCLA. Got to keep on playing water polo, and then went on the real world, real life, professional life, and now I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company named Okaya, where we help people measure their readiness and readiness for performance using video check-ins.
Mm, I love it. All right. Well, first let's dive into water polo. Never talked to someone that
Sure.
played water polo. So talk to us. What are the struggles, the hardest parts about water polo that people wouldn't think about conventionally?
Um, I think, well, first of all, I have to make the horrible joke, but we hear it all the time. We do not have a horse. That's regular polo, people. Water polo, definitely you have seven people aside, six plus a goalie, and you have to tread water the whole time. Your feet do not touch the bottom of the pool. So for people playing goalie, all respect to you guys because it never stops trading for them. It's 4 quarters of 8 minutes, and it is super, super physical. It has got even more physical since when I played, because back then when dinosaurs roamed the earth, it was not the same sport. When I see pretty much people your age right now, I'm glad I'm not in the pool anymore. So it's quite impressive to see how much faster and stronger people
Mm.
have become.
So what's the longest you've had to tread water for?
I made the mistake of playing goalie 1 year, so that was the whole game. But it's something you get used to, like
Hmm.
some people can go on crazy endurance runs, and we all look at them saying they're crazy, they can't do it. To them, it's normal. So after a while, it becomes normal.
What was the hardest part for you balancing, being doing water polo while also, studying and trying to figure out the transition of life after sports? I mean, while still being in your sport, but also planning, because obviously at some point you realize you weren't going to go the professional route with your sport. So how did you start to balance that junior, senior years? You started looking towards that transition.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there are a few things here. I think I came in as an international student, so the school part was always had to be number one compared to sports or anything else. That was the only way to stay on, and and base. I think I know you play basketball, a lot of basketball, pretty good level. So
Hmm.
you guys, when you play that level, there's still something above. Realistically, in the late 90s, playing water polo, end of college was the end of your career.
Hmm.
So you had really to treat it as something that was great and start to look for job options. I was fortunate enough back then to be hired by a company that was in the Bay Area doing consulting. So that was great. But I think it's a big, big change from having that very regimented life that you have in school with sports and practice and being able to juggle all this to also then be done with it. And you have to carry the same kind of mentality into the workspace.
Totally. And I think student athletes, like a lot of transferable skills that we can definitely take, but for so long they've only been applied to the sport. I was telling my brother the other day, like from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock for almost every day, that's like basketball time. Wake up, it's weights, practice, film,
Yeah.
around the team, recovery, whatever that looks like. And then it really feels like my day starts at 12. After once basketball and the sports stuff is
Yeah.
done, but then checking into class. And you're right, it's like juggling those things. But it does teach you time management and those things that will you be able to use for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
Well, absolutely incredible. I mean, from a recruiting standpoint, now if I put, the CEO hat back on, most of the time, student athletes are the best people that you can hire. And because of that mentality, there's, the time management, that's a big one, but also the one that need to perform, which not everyone has. But also don't discount the fact that nowadays, look at what you're doing. You're having a podcast on top of everything.
Hmm.
People who are under NIL, they have to maintain that crazy marketing and public
Hmm.
persona life. It's yet another level that's crazy that most people don't realize the amount of work that it takes to be a student athlete in college, or I have one in high school right now, and it's a huge amount of work. Like hats off to you guys. I'm not even trying to be nice. That's stuff I could not do anymore nowadays.
I'll be honest though, there's something to be said, and I'm conflicted on this one because I think the influence of technology has been amazing in the sense that we can do a lot more with less time and productivity, all that. And I think those are great, and that is where we're going, whether people like it or not. Like we're going towards that
Yeah.
age. Um, but on the other side of that, there has been, I think, a little bit of a drawback in physical connection, connecting to people in person. Communicating. It's a lot more, whether it be Zoom meetings or whether it be um, we're on our phones scrolling Instagram or social media or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
being able to still connect with people face to face, I think that piece is hurting a little bit. But in terms of productivity, it's great because I mean I can edit a lot of more of the videos down in way less time. I'm able to just record podcasts like this. I don't have to only do in-person episodes. Like there are amazing things, and it's a double-edged sword. And you're in the space right now, like using technology in your business. So, could you speak to a little bit about like how you guys are balancing that piece of human connection, but also using the technology?
Sure. Well, it's already, there's one point you made about people scrolling their phone. It reminded me of a really interesting story I just heard at a firefighter conference of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And something they've noticed, there's a change in how the team dynamic happens within firefighters, because it used to be fire station, bunk beds, everyone around the table chatting. Now the stations are rebuilt differently and everyone is on their phone. And you can see people who are older generations saying, at times we're losing a lot of that team dynamic that we used to have because people are doing other things. And in what we do, really, we're seeing like mental health as being the biggest showstopper for
Mm-hmm.
every sort of high performer, regardless of the field. Where it's always a story of we wish we would have known sooner, and we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
prevent this. So people do video selfies and they have an interaction with an AI, and then we can tell them how they're doing from a mental readiness standpoint. And the idea there is not then to provide a cure. The idea is not to be a therapist, but to do exactly what you just described. If I start to see like Natix is going down or Greg's going down, say, hey, why don't you go and talk to that resource you may have on
Mm-hmm.
campus or that resource you may have on your team? Because there's so much stigma, especially in sports, around mental health, that the more we can move the needle there, the better we help people.
Mm. Yeah. So speaking about mental health, perfect transition. When I was in Dallas, the topic of mental health came up, and is it strong to like be vulnerable and feel your emotions and tap into mental health, or is that a sign of weakness as a leader? And like that was a question, and we each got on both sides, and some of the people saying that that's a sign of weakness. They were saying because you're football players, sometimes like you need to have like that hard ass mentality of like don't be a B word or don't be this or that, like just get through it,
Yeah.
like grind it out, like that whole mindset. So it is very prevalent in sports, especially more physical sports, but I think all sports still feel it. um yeah, what would be the advice to student athletes or people that are battling the mental health, and it's sometimes they don't know what's going wrong, they don't know how to fix it, and they feel isolated. So like what do you think of, I guess, that first step?
It's funny, we were not at the same conference in Dallas. We should make that clear. The one I was to was in Dallas as well.
Oh yeah.
I think recently I talked to a psychologist who
Hmm.
only works with firefighters. And the
Mm.
reason I bring her up is that I think there was two things that are very relevant here. Firefighters, most of the time, when they go and see a regular therapist, the therapist ends up being crying, and the firefighter has to help them because they can't cope with what they are hearing. And I think for athletes, it's kind of the same problem. If you go and just and see some random person, it may help a bit, but there's no way they're going to be able to relate. What you just described earlier on, starting at 8 a.m. and being at the gym until
Mm-hmm.
noon, people are going to be, well, just train less, enjoy life a bit. You can't. That's not who you are.
So
I think
non-negotiable.
the it's not negotiable. And same thing. If you're a firefighter at the station, you're not doing well mentally, you still have to go on that call to put the fire out. There's no way around it. However, I think that's where the mistake is being made. When people tell you you need to be strong, you need to tough it up. Yes, but it's for a very specific reason for a very specific amount of time.
Mm,
Like for example, you have to take the last penalty shot or the last free throw. At that time, you need to be zoned in and focused. Where I think people make the mistake is thinking they're only looking at mental health as something they can improve when it's fixed or when something is not going wrong.
mm,
And if we're being realistic, you look at all the great athletes nowadays. What do they took? Mentalization, visualization,
mm-hmm.
sports coach. It's all coming under different names, but there's a reason why they're so good.
There's a big rise
It's
in
because
sports
they're
psychology too, even at the
oh,
university level.
but that's well, given the amount of money that they're investing into sports, they have to do. But if you think about it, except for the very, very outlier on the field, we're all pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
We all play the same, we all have the same training, we'll have the same everything. And still there are differences in results.
Mm,
Most of the time, you can bring it down to was it, did the person take care of their nutrition well, or did the person take care of their mental health well? Because everything else is the same. And that's something you can see time and time and time again on any sort of sport that you follow.
mm. I think another thing too, at a team level, is coaches are focused on the game plan, X's and O's, making sure the team's fed, this and that. That sometimes like checking just how the team is feeling might slip through the cracks. Like, what do you think that coaches might miss? Because I know you mentioned you do a little bit of coaching too. So,
Yeah.
what do you think as a coach like you're looking for to pick up on some of those early signs from a mental health standpoint?
Well, as a team, like that horrible cliche of together everyone achieves
Hmm.
more. I think coaches don't realize the importance of the mental side of things
Hmm.
because there's a mental side also outside the team. If the team's starting to not do well, that's when people start to no longer come together as the team. Things break down, and no matter how much time you spend in the weight room or in on the field, that's not going to bring the dynamic around any differently. I think there's also a big way to look at leadership and what true leadership is, because not everyone is always going to be able to perform at the same level at the same time.
Hmm.
What we're seeing, what we're doing, because the way everything started for us is actually pretty interesting. We started doing work with Air Force pilots, and what's interesting there is that right now, before they get behind the jet, they're self-reporting how they're feeling. You can totally imagine within that population how the self-reporting goes. I'm great. And if you ask an athlete, if I were to ask you before a game, you're always going to be great, even when you're not. Now, the risk is by not reporting properly, you're going to bring everyone down.
Mm,
And that can have a lot of consequences where, as a coach, I can tell you, I would much rather have one of my players say, you know what, I had this bad thing happen to me. I'm having a hard time deal with it, and then manage the minutes of that player so it doesn't impact the team as much, rather than finding out after the fact, here again, great. The outcome could have been a lot different.
yeah, that's a great point. I think, yeah, pregame, coach is trying to get a feel, and everyone's gonna, oh, I'm doing great, I'm ready to play. But then, they get out there, might be a little checked out or thinking about something else, and it's gonna affect performance. I think it's hard for student athletes to be honest in those moments because, the time that we spend out on the floor, out in the water, or out on the field, that time is some of the most special minutes that we'll ever get back. It's like
Yeah.
when everything goes away and you're just so absorbed in that present moment. Like that's what you train for, that's what you practice for. That, yeah, man, I'm great. Even if I'm not feeling great, I'm gonna tell coach I'm great so I can get out there.
Yeah. But at the same time, I know it's going to sound counterintuitive because I think most of the quote unquote old school coaches would be like, tough it up, like
Hmm.
back when we were playing. Those three no notion on mental health. But nowadays, you guys are under a lot more pressure than we were.
Mm.
Social media. I'm sure I can invite during the game how you're doing. If I don't like you, I can start like making comments about you on social media during the game. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
reality of it at any sports. It's the same in high school. I'm having a really hard time believing when people say, you know, it's 15, 16-year-old kid is playing football in Texas. He's not going to care when on social media he's being trashed because he was not able to pass the ball properly.
Mm,
It makes no sense. So from the coaching standpoint, yes, they have to realize that as athletes, we want to be out there and play and perform. Look at the number of athletes who don't report injuries as well.
a lot of
But the
playing through
reality
injuries
is
is
that,
very common.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just another form of injury that it should not be the case. So I think as a group we can all do better. And the reality is that every year we lose athletes because uh, they just can't cope anymore, and that's something that could be avoided.
Mm. I think one thing speaking to like student athlete experience is we don't have time necessarily to or into internships or jobs while in school because being a student athlete is a job in itself. So we have great experience. And you mentioned like employers are looking to hire student athletes, which is great. And I want you to touch on that a little bit more. But speaking more to like the student athlete side, it's like we don't maybe get to build out as big of a resume of stuff like outside of our sport. So we might be feeling like we're a little bit underrepresented when we head into the job market. Like, do you have any thoughts for that? Do you think that that's something to not worry about too much because we do have other skills that still separate us, or like what should be our mindset heading into the quote unquote real world once our sports are done?
It's a tough question. For a while we had actually we had quite a few student athletes now come to think about it as interns. But there was one who was also a great track and field runner, cross country runner. And after a while, there's she could not juggle with everything. Obviously, trying to do things during the off season, even though there's no real off season anymore,
Mm-hmm.
is a good way to gain some experience. But then it always comes down to how do you showcase your skills on a resume when you may not have the same things. Oddly enough, I'm having the same conversation with people from the military. You're talking about the most organized, they can run logistics across the world, but on their
Mm-hmm.
resume it just says like Captain so and so. Um, but there's so many things that you have to do from a time management skills already that you can put forward. There's so many things that you have to do from the training standpoint, that knowledge that was required. Almost each and every one of you who's playing a major sports has to have a presence on social media. Look, when I see, you can almost tell nowadays who people who understand social media or not going to account, and you can totally see the age generation there.
Mm-hmm.
My generation, everyone claims they know how to do it and all this. Nope, you guys do. But that's a huge advantage to put forward. So it's really look at just like a game. You don't go and attack the best player on the other team because you're it's not going to work. You look for weaknesses, look for ways around, and that would be the way. And then also look for companies who are interested in your guys' profiles because some companies are very interested in that.
Mm. And there's a lot of new companies too popping up, and I think it's a good segue to speak a little bit more about what you guys do at Okaya. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep,
Okay. Yeah.
it
So,
is.
yeah, I know you mentioned it briefly in your bio, but what exactly do you guys do? And how could um, what kind of value do you bring to your guys' clients?
Sure. So really, our customers, mostly within first responders, any sort of high performance companies, they want to make sure that their teams are operating at peak performance and peak readiness on the mental side.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you are one of our customers, you would deploy this within your team, but we want to make it very, very private and secured because no one wants to talk about their mental health in public,
Mm-hmm.
as we mentioned. So specifically, let's say I work for you even within your team, I would go and do a check-in on my phone on Okaya. And by the way, you guys can try it. We got free accounts floating around if you need them. But so you do a video check-in and you interact with an AI for a few seconds. At the end of that interaction, it comes back with the score. The next time you come along, the AI will remember what you talked about. and what your score was back then. So it's always you versus you when it comes to measuring your mental health
Mm-hmm.
and giving you ideas, suggestion, and advice on what you can do to improve. That's you as an individual. Then when you look at the sports team level, at the fire department level, or some of the pilots we work with, we can start to aggregate and anonymize the data. So your coach can go and look, say, you know what, everyone in the team is still reeling from that loss a few days ago, or really
Mm.
it was a bad loss. That's all they talk about. There's a drop. We need to do something different. Or they're really responding well to the training on the mental side when we thought they were going to be more impacted. What can we do to help as well? So that's really the way the tool is really a connector. We're not here to do therapy. We're not here to replace the therapists or the professionals, but to be that glue and that incentive to get people to realize, hey, maybe it's time that I need to open up and go and interact with the professionals to become better.
So it's like a first step, gather some data before taking
Exactly.
taking next step.
Think of it as an assessment for mental
Mm.
health, the same way you do like sports assessment at the beginning of the year. And then based on those assessments, you take a hard look and say, oh, maybe I need to improve X, Y, or Z. It's the same on the mental health because the reality as well, to go back to something you mentioned before, as much as going to therapy is fine, but not everyone needs to go see a therapist at a very given time. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
your mental health other things. And the idea is getting you to realize what the root of the problem is, and then you can go and deal with it.
No, and I think the idea of it being an assessment beforehand, because you don't know, yeah, whether you need therapy, not need therapy. I mean, if you have the opportunity to do it, I think it's a great resource and a great tool, even just as a preventative measure.
Oh yeah.
But given the fact that it is more expensive, I am curious, are you guys prominently like business to business, or do you guys also go direct to consumer if individuals are interested in these assessments?
Yes, we do have individuals using the platform just for their own benefit. And then obviously then becomes a self-discovery tool. You can track the same way you would record your training
Mm,
on Strava or other places. You can record your mental health on Okaya.
mm, very cool. Where do you guys see it going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh my God, 5 or 10 years. That's a long horizon.
5 years. How about 5 years? Ten's a little bit.
No,
Who
it sounds
even knows
good.
what things look like in 10 years?
No worries. Look, we're extremely focused on anyone who works in those high performance, high
Hmm.
risk, high rewards goals, where really the impact of not doing well mentally can have a huge impact on the team, and on organization, on even on operations at large when I look at the Air Force. So we want to really own that place, give people more and more ways to do proper assessments, but also to understand where they at and how they can improve. Because that's in the end, we all want to get better. We all want to perform better. And for us to be able to grow within that market will be great. Then obviously there are many other ways we can grow as a company. Being an AI company, it could
Hmm.
mean integrating with bigger software. It could mean acquiring companies that are doing things that are beneficial to our customers. We really want to go where the market goes. Now, honestly, as well, at the pace at which AI is moving along, I really admire people who got 5 years plan and think that's going to happen. The changing pace in AI, as you mentioned, from a technology standpoint, you can do so much more in so much less
Mm.
time that it's the market is changing every single minute. All the playbooks are the window. It's crazy.
I think that's a great way to put it. Like the traditional playbook is cooked, in my opinion now. So
Yeah.
I there are people that are just now entering college. I'm graduating this year. I I think artificial intelligence started to rise a little bit, like even for like more common use. I think or at least the way that I'm seeing people use it now, like sophomore, junior year, a little bit. But now where it was 2 years ago, like I can't even imagine people that are just coming into school now. It's like it's even reshaping how educate professors are teaching in their classes. So just from an AI point of view, someone that is, very involved in tech right now, what's your advice for young people right now trying to grapple with AI with it changing so quickly?
Uh, The first thing I would say is try to really go pretty deep and understanding how it works. And by understanding how it works is like understand it just relies on data and just statistics on top of it.
Hmm.
But it all works differently. If you want to have fun, today or tonight, whenever people watch this, open your favorite AI tool and enter a question, any sort of question. Give your opinion, ask the AI for its opinion. It's going to return something. And then the next thing I would like you to type is, "Hey, Claude." In my case, I use Claude a lot. You don't have to agree with me. Answer the question again, and you're going to see that what it brings back to you is going to be entirely different.
Mm.
And that's really the key with AI. I think people are going to be able to use AI properly down the road, or people are going to be able to understand that that first response you get, there's a lot more behind it.
Mm.
And it's having the mastery of really having the tool work for you that's going to make the biggest difference.
Mm.
Now, other places, yeah, if you're into computer engineering, I would really look at the changes to see how you can differentiate what you learn compared to what we used to learn. It's those tools are becoming very, very good at doing some of the basic coding tasks, basic research. All these skills are no longer going to be there. But what I'm wondering though is that how much in school are they encourage you to use AI in what you do?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. More so this past year than previously. I think when it was first introduced, we started noticing it. Professors were like, absolutely no AI, like no, no, no. But now, now that we're starting to get a little bit closer, and now professors are also hearing people that are in businesses and job employers saying, we need our people that are working for our companies to understand how AI works. Like we need that, that's something that we need our employees to do. So then as soon as our professor started to hear that from a business level and what the employers were looking for, then tune was changing. So then in our business school at Dominican, um, our class where we gather all the business students, like we're very, very open about how to prompt AI, how to use AI, just interacting with it, asking it questions, having it argue both sides. And that's something I'll probably bring up next semester too. It's definitely flipped quite a bit though in the last year. Like before it was a lot more anti, and now it's a little more encouraged as long as sources are being cited and it's not doing
Sure.
all of the writing for you because you still got to use those, those you have to use that brain power still.
But yeah, thank God. But even what you're doing with podcasts, I'm seeing like tools are changing all the time and making like your guys'
Totally.
life simpler and simpler by the minute. So
From a
that's really
video
impressive
editing
as well.
standpoint, yeah, I got absolutely. I mean, I used to sit and clip individual stuff from an episode, and now that's one thing I've been able to kind of offload a little bit, which has been super helpful.
Sure.
And that's only getting better too. I'm curious to see where that tech goes.
It's every minute, now going back to sport in a sense, same thing. At the Dallas conference, even though it was firefighter, one of the presenter talked a lot about how Formula One was using AI. And
Hmm.
I could see with water polo, we're trying to use a bit. Like every single sport now is trying to get every single edge they can from the performance standpoint. And I really wonder how it's going to end up. Is it really going to be to better the athlete or to turn it into just executing some pre-made plan?
Mm.
That's going to be a wild one.
To double click on what you said about when using Claude having argue against, like a lot of people use ChatGPT,
Yeah,
which is built for
yeah,
consumers, and I saw a video that go into like the personalized prompt for chat and put into there like argue against what I'm pushing. The ideas that I'm giving you, point out the weak points, argue against me because
yeah,
inherently the way the code is written right now, it's to be a supporter, to be super, two thumbs up to everything you're doing, everything's great. But if you use it as something to point out what the flaws are, what's short, what's not going right, the tool's so much more valuable by pointing out what areas you're missing.
yeah. Absolutely. Earlier on, you were talking about what can athletes do, student athletes do as they go and look for jobs. That's also a very good way to use it. Say, here's where I'm at. Here's where I feel the rest of the market is at. Give me some suggestions to how I can differentiate my resume, how I can make it stand out. Because look, most of those tools, like ChatGPT and all the other ones, they want you to stay on their environment as much as possible. So on
Mm-hmm.
social, no longer it's no longer social. It's more like interest media more than anything else. ChatGPT, and they know you're interested in yourself, so they're going to keep on saying things that feel good. And that's also why right now they have to put so many guardrails when it comes to mental health, because before this, they would just reinforce what the person was saying,
Mm-hmm.
and that can lead to disaster.
Totally. You can put you in your own little echo chamber of just, all right, everything's great.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing great.
It's not just even great. I mean, they're especially for people who have, whether they know it or not, any sort of psychosis, the tool will just reinforce it.
Mm,
So, um, and that's one, obviously one of the drawbacks, because I was reading the ChatGPT released that survey where I think every week 500,000 of the queries they're getting are from people who have some sort of ideation of suicide, something else.
wow.
Which,
I did not
given
know that.
the amount, yeah, the amount of traffic they're getting, you could always say, well, it's not that much, but it's still like 500,000. Sorry, yeah, 500,000 people who feel that way, who
Mm.
usually did not say anything about it. They go on the tool, and now they're putting better guardrails. But in the past, the tool would just like kind of reinforce that how they were feeling was all right, and they should keep on going with what they have in mind, which definitely is not the way technology should be built.
Yeah, I think in that case, it should be funneling them to live resources,
Yeah,
hotlines, real people. I don't think it's probably good to just keep funneling questions into if going down that rabbit hole. I don't think is a good space to be in.
yeah, I know.
All right, I got one more question for you before I get to the rapid fire.
Sure.
What do you think success looks like now?
Think it changes for everybody. Um, but that's that's a great question. I think for me, definition of success is that if you can look at yourself in the mirror in the morning or at night or whenever you like to look at yourself in the mirror,
Mm,
and really think, you know what, I've I've lived by the golden rule kind of thing, which is, respect others, do not do unto others. Um, to me, that's the biggest way of looking at success. I think we got to a point where success has been very limited recently based on amount on bank account or number of views, and
mm,
people are taking shortcuts to get to where they want to be. We see that every day, and some of us live that every day, and that really does not matter. I got a awesome 15-year-old at home. I would much rather she looked at her dad knowing he's doing things the right way more than any sort of way. So for me, that's more the success side of things. Now, if I go back to when I was in my 20s
hmm.
and a student athlete, the answer could be different. But oftentimes when I tell my team, if you bring it back to sports, is that the win and the losses, I know that's what we get measured by
Of
in
course.
sport. But if we're honest with ourselves, it means nothing. Especially when you look at tournaments, you can have like 3 games during the day.
Hmm.
You can actually blow off one team by 20 or 30 in your sport. The next game, you get like killed by those guys. It doesn't change who you are as people, and it doesn't change who you were as athletes. It's just that that team at that time performed differently than you did. And that ability to always perform consistently and trying to improve, that's the hardest part. And if you're able to do this, like in my book, you're super successful.
I love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing.
No
All right,
worries.
few rapid fire questions. Do you prefer early mornings or late nights?
I have a lab that wakes me up at 5 a.m. no matter what to go out. So even though I would much rather do late nights, I don't have the choice.
Hmm.
So I'll take mornings.
Love it. Is it a harder job to coach or play?
Coach.
Hmm. I agree. I do agree with that because I've
It's
gotten into
it's
coaching a little
hell
bit.
because especially if you play long enough, you will see there's only so many things that can happen on any sort of
Hmm.
sports field.
Hmm.
The ball can only go so many places, and sometimes you see it before your players, and you're like, I just want to be in there to help them, but you can't, and that's where you need to help them grow. But oh, coaching is hard, and then you
Hmm.
have to deal with the parents. That's a whole different story.
Absolutely. Coaching is definitely there's a different level of reward that you get from
Yeah.
coaching a team though. Yeah, good. All right, last one. Finish this sentence. athletes are more prepared than they think because
Because they have to learn to because they have to learn to know how to fail.
mm, it's an inherent
As
that's built into the
athletes,
cake of sports.
as athletes, we fail way more than we succeed
Mm,
every single day.
that's it
And
right there.
the only reason we succeed is because we fail, quote unquote Michael Jordan, but it's true. It's and most people in outside of our fields do not get that.
Mm, that's perfect. Greg, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time today for this interview. Coming in from Spain, I'm still grappling with that. It's amazing. Thank you for making it work.
No
In
worries.
the episode notes, you'll find Greg's LinkedIn and link to the company he co-founded and is working on right now, Okaya. So you can find those in the episode notes. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you found anything helpful and insightful from today's episode, please remember to share with family, friends, loved ones. The number one way to grow a podcast is through sharing it, as well as leave a comment about what you like from today's episode. It means the world to me. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll be back here next time.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.